You didn't drift away by accident. You didn't disappear because you failed. And you didn't go quiet because life defeated you. You went silent because something far greater than survival was happening inside you, and the world around you was not equipped to understand it yet. This Sagittarius moon is not for everyone. It never is. It's for the ones who stepped back when everyone else pushed forward. The ones who withdrew while the noise got louder. The ones who felt the strange pull to isolate, to detach, to disappear from timelines they once thought they had to follow. And if that's you, I want you to hear this clearly before anything else settles in. Nothing went wrong. What you've been calling loneliness, delay, stagnation, or being off track was never punishment. It was preservation. It was divine timing doing what your logic could not explain. Because there is a kind of soul that cannot be rushed into alignment, a kind of energy that collapses if it's exposed too early, and a kind of purpose that only survives if it's hidden long enough to mature in peace. And Sagittarius energy understands this better than any other. Sagittarius doesn't move in straight lines. It moves in truth, in meaning, in expansion that comes after confinement. This moon doesn't arrive to push you forward. It arrives to let you know the holding pattern is ending. If you've felt like your life has been paused while others surged ahead, this is where the story shifts. Because here's what most people never realize. When life pulls you back, it's not always rejection. Sometimes it's removal. Removal from paths that were too small, from people who couldn't meet your depth, from timelines that would have required you to shrink just to belong. And you knew it, even when you didn't want to admit it. That's why your isolation didn't feel empty. It felt heavy, dense, like something was forming beneath the surface. You weren't resting. You were reorganizing. Your values changed quietly. Your tolerance dropped. Your intuition sharpened. Your desire for shallow connections faded. And for a long time, it may have felt like nothing was happening externally, while everything was shifting internally. That's not stagnation, that's initiation. The gifted ones always go quiet before their life expands, not because they lose confidence, but because their energy becomes too refined to scatter. This Sagittarius moon is a signal flare for those who learned how to survive in the dark without losing their light. It's not here to bring back the past. It's here to bring back you. There is a version of yourself that you set aside when life became too loud, a dream that felt too heavy to carry alone, a calling that didn't fit inside the structures you were trying to force yourself into, a part of your identity that you buried because it felt safer to be unseen than misunderstood. You told yourself it was gone. You convinced yourself you missed your chance. You adapted to a smaller version of life because it seemed more realistic, but it never left. It went underground, and things that grow underground don't die. They strengthen. This moon doesn't resurrect old dreams. It returns the power you lost when you stopped believing you were allowed to want more. That subtle pull you've been feeling lately, the one you can't explain, the restlessness that doesn't feel like anxiety and doesn't feel like excitement, that's not confusion. That's recognition. Your future brushing against your present before your mind catches up. You may have noticed strange things happening recently. A sudden urge to reorganize your life, distance growing between you and people who once felt familiar, clarity arriving without effort, a feeling that something is over even if nothing dramatic happened. That's alignment doing its work quietly, because the danger that once required you to hide is no longer tracking you. The cycle that drained you has dissolved. The pattern that kept pulling you backward has lost its grip. The environments that demanded pieces of you that weren't meant to be given can't reach you anymore. And the moment survival mode shuts off, purpose can finally speak. Freedom doesn't always arrive as celebration. Sometimes it arrives as peace, as the absence of pressure, as the realization that you're no longer bracing for impact. Sagittarius energy is about direction, not defense, meaning not fear. Expansion that comes naturally when the timing is right. You don't have to hide anymore, not because the world is suddenly safe, but because you are no longer available for what once drained you. The silence you lived in wasn't rejection, it was protection. While others were busy chasing validation, you were being separated from noise long enough to remember who you actually are. You weren't excluded, you were refined. And now, as this Sagittarius moon rises, something subtle but undeniable begins to shift. If you've made it this far, don't forget to subscribe for daily cosmic insights, astrology updates, and spiritual guidance, because the universe always has a message for you. You may feel like you're standing at the edge of a moment that hasn't introduced itself yet, like something is watching you approach from the distance, not with urgency, with precision, that heaviness in your chest, that clarity in your thoughts, that quiet sense of something is coming. That's not imagination. It's alignment announcing itself early. Purpose always arrives before understanding. The knowing comes first. The explanation follows later. That's why the map feels blank right now. It's being rewritten as you move. You're not being asked to predict the future. You're being asked to trust that you're being guided toward it. You didn't go into hiding to escape life. You went in to be reformed. The person who stepped back is not the person stepping forward now. You changed while nobody was watching. Your thinking deepened. Your boundaries strengthened. Your instincts matured. What looked like withdrawal was transformation without interruption. And growth that happens in silence speaks louder than any announcement ever could. You may feel like you fell behind, but spiritually, you moved ahead. You confronted parts of yourself most people avoid. You let go of identities that no longer fit. You learned how to sit with uncertainty without collapsing. That's not delay, that's mastery. The world feels different now because you are different. You don't react the same. You don't chase the same. You don't bend the same way. This Sagittarius moon marks the moment where life begins to respond to who you've become, not who you used to be. Your energy carries weight now. Your presence lands differently. Your silence commands attention. Silence is not absence, it's concentration. When you stop broadcasting your every move, your power gathers. When you stop explaining yourself, your intentions sharpen. When you stop trying to be seen, you become impossible to ignore. The gifted ones are never loud, they're precise. And this moon amplifies that precision. Your absence didn't weaken your influence. It prepared the impact of your return. There are gifts within you that went dormant because the environment wasn't safe enough to support them. Talents you stopped using. Instincts you muted, dreams you buried because disappointment felt heavier than hope. But nothing that's meant for you ever truly disappears. It matures. And now, those parts are rising with clarity you didn't have before. You may be surprised how naturally things return. Skills feel sharper. Ideas feel cleaner. Connections feel more aligned. Even people may re-enter your life in ways that feel strangely timed, not from the past, but from resonance. This is not coincidence. Sagittarius energy reveals what has been preparing quietly. You're not returning to an old dream with old eyes. You're meeting it with wisdom, boundaries, and self-trust. The chance you thought you missed wasn't missed. It wasn't ready. You didn't lose your shot. You outgrew the earlier version of it. The opportunities approaching now are not recycled versions of the past. They are expansive enough to hold who you've become. And here's the part most people don't talk about. There comes a moment in every spiritual journey where chasing destiny becomes exhausting. Not because you don't care, but because you've been carrying too much on your own. This Sagittarius moon shifts that dynamic. It doesn't reward hustle. It rewards readiness. It doesn't demand effort. It creates alignment. Some doors don't open because you push. They open because you finally stop forcing what isn't meant to move with you. You're not behind. You're exactly where timing can find you. And you're not the only one feeling this. Across the world, others like you are waking up quietly. The ones who withdrew, the ones who always felt different, the ones who couldn't fit into shallow timelines. This moon acts like a frequency. Only certain people can hear it. Not because they're chosen, but because their lives shaped them into receivers. You're not alone in this shift. The tribe is remembering itself. Connections will form naturally now, not through force, through resonance. And as this chapter unfolds, you'll realize something profound. You never disappeared. You were being prepared. And now the world is finally ready to meet you where you stand. If you felt this, you were meant to. Take the next step that feels right, not rushed, not forced, because what's coming knows exactly where to find you. Something else begins to surface under this Sagittarius moon, and it's subtle enough that many people will ignore it if they're not paying attention. But if you're still listening, if something in you stayed open through all of this, then this part is meant for you. Because awakening after isolation doesn't feel the way people imagine it does. It's not loud. It's not dramatic. It doesn't arrive with instant certainty. It arrives as unease. A strange discomfort with the life you were just tolerating. You may suddenly feel restless in places that once felt safe. Conversations feel shallow. Routines feel empty. Goals you used to chase feel oddly irrelevant. And for a moment, you might wonder if something is wrong with you again. But this isn't collapse. This is recalibration. When divine timing activates, it doesn't immediately give you the new life. It first makes the old one impossible to stay in. That's why things may feel unstable right now. Not falling apart, losing their grip on you. You're no longer emotionally available for what once fed off your energy. And the universe always tests this before it rewards it. Old patterns may try to resurface. Old people may reappear. Old temptations may knock, not because you're meant to go back, but because alignment demands confirmation. This is where the gifted ones are different. Most people confuse discomfort with danger. You recognize it as a signal. You don't panic when things feel unfamiliar anymore. You've lived in uncertainty long enough to know the difference between chaos and transition. And this Sagittarius moon marks a crossing point where intuition becomes louder than fear. You're no longer asking, "What if this doesn't work?" You're starting to ask, "Why would I settle for less now?" That shift matters more than you realize, because divine timing doesn't respond to desperation. It responds to readiness. And readiness isn't confidence, it's self-trust. You may notice that you're no longer chasing validation from people who can't meet you where you are. You don't feel the need to explain yourself. You don't feel the urgency to prove your worth. Silence feels natural now, not defensive. That's because your energy has stabilized. You've stopped leaking power into places that can't hold it. And when that happens, life begins to rearrange itself quietly around you. Opportunities don't arrive as grand announcements. They arrive as invitations that feel oddly calm, conversations that open doors without effort, ideas that feel obvious, like they've been waiting for you to notice them, paths that feel inevitable instead of forced. This is Sagittarius wisdom at work, expansion through alignment, not struggle. You may feel called to move differently now, not necessarily physically, but internally, to take risks that feel aligned instead of reckless, to say no without guilt, to walk away without anger, to choose what nourishes you without needing permission. And this is important. You're not meant to rush this phase. Isolation trained you to listen. Divine timing now asks you to respond. Slowly, clearly, intentionally. You don't need to announce your return. You don't need to explain your evolution. Your presence will communicate everything. People may begin reacting to you differently. Some will be drawn to you without knowing why. Others will feel unsettled around you. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because alignment exposes imbalance. And this is where many gifted ones feel guilt. You may wonder if you're becoming cold, if you're losing empathy, if you're outgrowing people in a way that feels unfair. But growth isn't abandonment, it's honesty. You're no longer betraying yourself to keep others comfortable. And the universe always supports that decision, even when it feels lonely at first. This Sagittarius moon isn't here to isolate you again. It's here to reconnect you correctly. The connections forming now are different. They don't drain you. They don't demand performance. They don't require you to shrink or explain your depth. They recognize you without effort. And recognition is the opposite of loneliness. What you're stepping into now isn't a reward for suffering. It's a result of endurance, of discernment, of choosing silence over self-betrayal when life gave you no clear answers. You stayed present through the unknown. That's why clarity is finding you now. And if there's one thing you need to remember as this next phase unfolds, it's this. You don't owe your future to your past. You are not required to carry old identities into new chapters. You're allowed to arrive lighter, clearer, more selective. Divine timing doesn't repeat itself. It upgrades. And this Sagittarius moon marks the moment where you stop waiting for permission and start responding to alignment. Not because everything is certain, but because you are. If this resonated, it's because you're already standing in the doorway. The rest will reveal itself step by step, not rushed, not forced, exactly on time.